Hi, I'm Jeff Ondria, an account executive with Arkieva. Thanks for joining us here on Arkieva Spotlight. Today, we're back to continue our discussion on the 5 distinct steps of developing an effective S&OP process, outlined in Dr. Singh's book, A Practical Guide for Improving Sales and Operational Planning. On our last Arkieva Spotlight, we discussed Arkiva's overall approach to developing an effective S&OP process. Today, we're starting with step 1, understanding customers' demand. With me to discuss step 1 is my colleague, Shankara Gurumurthy. Shankar is a practice director here at Arkieva who leads a team of implementation consultants. Shankar, thanks for joining me today.
Thanks, Jeff. I'm excited to be here today with you.
Fantastic. Shankar, let's just get right into it. What kind of problems can a business expect to run into if they don't have a good understanding of their customer demand?
Sure. When you don't have a good understanding of your customer demand, what it often leads to is to poor customer satisfaction, and it often tends to impact your brand image, which ultimately could result in loss of revenue for the organization, which is never a good thing.
Right.
In reality, this is because businesses are unable to accurately anticipate or forecast their customer needs, which results in poor decision making, causing like imbalances across your supply chain, which results in inventory issues across your network, often both at the finished good and even at the raw material side. So not having a good understanding of your customer demand can have a widespread impact across your supply chain.
Great, yeah. So if I were to begin a process to better understand their demand, where should they start? And what type of tasks should the team expect?
Sure. I would recommend that the businesses should often start with understanding the sources of variability in their demand across both their products as well as their customers. It should often be followed by putting some key metrics, such as like order fulfillment. And in the industry, it is often referred to as an OTIF metric, which stands for on time and being delivered in full. Now, demand has two elements to it, a qualitative element and a quantitative aspect to it. And it's important to analyze the data at different levels of hierarchies. For example, it might be interesting to get some insights around your sales data when you look at it at the product family level versus looking at it at the individual SKUs. Similarly, on the customer side, it might be interesting to get some insights on where the demand is eventually ending up from a geographical perspective, like by a region or by a state, rather than looking at your sales by individual shipped tools or sold tools. Now, once you have this attribute framework set up, it will also be interesting to look at statistical patterns in terms of order size, like fill rates, what is your replenishment lead time. And you can certainly extend these analysis into some basic statistical models, like doing an ABC analysis, such that you can understand what portion of your business represents like the top 80%, what represents your bottom 5%. So all these interesting analysis can be enabled. Another thing that you can also do is to look at what portion of your business is make to order and what portion is actually make to stock. And this can often result in improving the quality of the forecast that you're generating at different levels of aggregation. When I talked about metrics earlier, it is also very important to get consensus across your teams around the mechanics of the scorecard that you will be utilizing, because it often helps with making it a reliable guide to measure and monitor performance over the long period of the planning horizon.
Cool. So what type of technology deliverables should a business be striving for at this point, Shankar?
Sure. When we think about technology, we like to think about it as the framework that we want to utilize, the automation capability that we want to add on to it, and also the analytical capability that should be layered on top of it. So when we say the technology framework, ERP systems are typically transactional in nature, and they are often not built to handle like bulk analysis or getting insights into your historical sales data. So for this purpose, we often recommend having a database type application where you can fetch data from your ERP system and perform some data manipulations to look at data at the detail level, look at data at an aggregate level, look at shipments, compare it to forecasts, perform all of these analysis inside that database. Now, it's also important to look at the automation capability, meaning that you want to be able to get the data from your ERP system at a set frequency, either once a day or once a week. And that capability should also be considered when selecting the technology. And lastly, you also want to have some analytical capability, both in terms of being able to configure metrics and formulas, and also having a good visualization tool where you can see the trends and patterns in your data set. So all of these components are quite critical when it comes to selecting a technology for supply chain planning purposes.
Yeah, understood. So, once you've completed this exercise, how do you maintain it?
So that's a very good question, Jeff. So we often like to think of these things in the context of three key pillars, which is people, process, and technology, and hopefully in that order. Now, earlier we talked about the people and the technology aspect. Now, when it comes to a process, there is already an established business concept called sales and operation planning, or in short, S&OP. Now, all the earlier conversations that we had around tracking your demand, studying your OTIF metric, they all fall under the first milestone within the sales and operation planning, which is around the demand review aspect. The nice thing about this S&OP process is that it prescribes a monthly cadence, which will enable organizations to maintain and monitor their supply chain performance over the long horizon. So having an S&OP process will be critical for organizations, especially who are in the supply chain planning space.
So what are a few benefits you'd expect from completing this exercise, Shankara?
Well, there are lots of supply chain related metrics that I can think of, such as improved forecast accuracy, minimizing your excess inventory, reducing your inventory obsolescence, having less frequent expedite orders. All these are supply chain benefits, but often one benefit that is overlooked is the productivity gains that are attained by avoiding the rework that planners often have to go through. Now, considering the tight marketplace where it's often very difficult to find good talent, trying to focus on employee satisfaction has recently become one of the critical things that organizations have started to look at. So improving the overall productivity gains, in addition to all these supply chain metrics, I believe are some of the key benefits that organizations can benefit from.
It's fantastic. Shankara, man, thank you very much for your time today. I appreciate the information you shared with us. I'd like to thank everyone for watching. I look forward to picking up the conversation the next time when I'll be discussing step 2, analyzing inventories, right here on Arkieva Spotlight. Thank you.
Thank you.